Good evening from New York. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am excited about this program. Our guest this evening is Mrs. Yvonne Secreto. On the other side of the break, I'll introduce her formally, but I'm excited because of what she brings to this conversation. Here's a woman who is a master of Reiki, a teacher and an author as well, and she's been a practicing nurse since the 80s, since 1980. And let me just bring Yvonne on and get this show started because I am excited. I'm excited. So there she is on the other side of the screen. Yvonne, welcome to CWS Journeys.
Thank you, Selwyn. And I'm glad to be here. I call it creative nursing.
Creative nursing.
Creative nursing. Yeah.
Okay. So, when you think about yourself, what are three positive words that come to mind to describe you?
Healer and creative person, of course, and just expansion.
Expansion?
Yeah.
You care to elaborate?
Well, the way that I work is very expansive. I don't like to stay in the third dimension, which is the human experience.
Yes.
So what I say to clients and people that I work with is the answer is usually outside of the third dimension, in the fourth dimension, which is where the blueprint usually is. The blueprint to whatever you're looking for.
Fourth dimension.
The fourth dimension. And beyond.
And beyond.
Yeah.
The average person who's listening to this who might not be aware with the dimensions.
Okay.
How would you break that down to them?
The fourth dimension is the realm of consciousness. So my work is primarily focused in the realm of consciousness. Many times we see people who want to heal something or correct something, and they do it. I had someone tell me today he worked on healing something and it got corrected, and 6 months later it came back. If you don't deal with the blueprint, the seed, the reason it's happening, whatever it is, it will come back in another shape, another form, another organ, another experience. But when you deal with whatever you're dealing with on the realm of consciousness, then you get to the seed of it.
You know, I want to get into this, but I want to explore your timeline a little bit and get some background. Where were you born, and what was it like growing up for you at, let's say, ages 8 and 16?
Well, I was born in Panama, Central America, and my great-grandmother owned a farm. A very large farm. I remember mango trees everywhere. And we would climb them, pick them, eat them all day, eat pineapple, papaya, everything. So I remember that in my mid-teens. Now, actually, from 5 to maybe 10, I grew up on many Army bases throughout the Midwest as an Army brat, you could say. But when my stepfather was called to Vietnam, they asked my mother, where would you like to go when he goes to Vietnam? And so she said, of course, I want to go back home. So we went to Panama. So from age 10 to 13, I remember those wonderful days, climbing those trees and really reconnecting with my roots. And I never went to the hospital as a child. Never. My grandmother would go to the back of the yard, cut some bush, boil some tea, rub us down with some, we were better. So even though I became an RN, I always blended the two, the natural and the scientific.
Was your grandmother a big influence in you, not only in your life, but was she a big influence in your life, and also was she a big influence in you going in this career direction?
Yes, she was the central influence in my creative nursing. So I said to myself, I don't want to do regular nursing. I want to do real creative work where we're really making a difference, and I want to do it in the realm of consciousness.
So how long, when did you start nursing?
Well, I actually finished the last phase of my training in 1985, and I had some work nights on the pediatric ward. And so I would work with the babies at night, and I took Reiki, which is transmitting love energy. Okay, so you become a conduit for transmitting love energy. And I remember walking to their cribs in the middle of the night and just doing Reiki over the crib and on the babies. And the parents would come to me the next day and they said, I had some work. Some of the parents would say, "Are you working again tonight? You know, my son hasn't slept all week. I don't know what the difference is, but something was different tonight." And I was so inspired by that, and I saw it so often that I said to myself, you know, I have to really use this in a bigger way. So I wrote a proposal, and we actually got funded to do training for parents to teach them how to do, we call it therapeutic touch, with children with disabilities.
So how did you first learn about Reiki, and what drew you to it?
Well, I was at a social event, and my teacher, Melanie Chong, she is the best, she said to me, do you want to learn how to work with love energy? And I said, of course. So it was a very simple statement, and that's what it is. I mean, parents naturally transmit love when they hold their children, and you know, I think there was a Vicks commercial where they showed the person rubbing the baby with Vicks and the love transmitting. It's very similar to that. We already do it. But with Reiki, you can become like an antenna for the energy.
An antenna?
Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you been a Reiki master?
Well, I started a little after the nursing, that I finished nursing, so I would say about 1987.
1987?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
And what are some challenges you had while practicing Reiki?
Well,
in the beginning.
Challenges, I'll tell you, I do something now called past life regression, where we go into other lifetimes. And I was doing Reiki on someone at a retreat, and she spontaneously regressed into another lifetime. And it was very scary because she started choking and gagging and she couldn't breathe, and so I panicked, and I shook her out of the session, and I had her sit up, and I really lost the benefit of that moment, but I didn't know what to do because...
Was that your introduction to past life regression?
That was my introduction.
So what did you do? Did you explore
Well,
it? How did you
I went ahead and got some training in it because I didn't know how to manage the session when the person became over emotional in the experience that they were remembering, because that's all it is. You're just waking up memory. So I went and I got the training, and basically what happens is you have the person become an observer. So they literally hover above the image and look down on it. And that way they don't, if I had done that with her, she wouldn't have felt the cessation of choking. But I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing the Reiki, and the Reiki energy sort of lifted the blocks that were there. And so that's why.
So, Reiki, past life regression.
Yeah.
How long have you started, you've been doing past life regression?
Well, that came more in the early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
And you've done, I guess, countless.
Yeah, thousands of sessions.
Any memorable experience you had?
They're all so incredible. I did one today, as a matter of fact, and the person told me she saw herself on a plantation, and she was running behind horses because they were taking her sons away. and she was heartbroken. And sure enough, she's dealing with a health situation that's affected in her heart area. So we did a lot of healing around grief, around her broken heart. And the fascinating thing is we have a biofield scanning camera in our office that can actually take a picture of your biofield and the energy around your body. So we took the picture before the session, and you could see the round, thick red area in her heart. And after we did the session, there was a lot of releasing, a lot of tears, a lot of forgiveness. You could see it open up, and when we tested her.
What is that?
Fascinating.
Fascinating. I can just imagine for the critics and those who are the cynics rather. What do you say to those who are saying, "Well, what's past life regression? I mean, but I have been born before, but I've been in this life before."
Well, you know, there are people who, for religious reasons, don't believe in reincarnation. So I don't usually try to sway them. But for someone who really wants to understand the process, I just tell them that you can imagine we don't use like most of our brain function.
Right.
So the things that the brain can do, we can't even imagine. We can regrow limbs. There's just countless things that we can do if we knew how to use all of our brain. Now, why can't we believe that we can store that much memory in our brain? Because that's all it is. It's like a computer, and there's stored memory in there. So my questions retrieve the memories. That's all they do.
Retrieve the memories.
Yeah. So it's a very simple thing. People make it more complicated than it is.
So when you first started past life regression, what was that experience like for you?
It was fascinating. First of all, I just want to clarify something. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, I'll go to someone," and they'll say, "Oh, you were Cleopatra." It's not like that at all. I never, ever, ever tell someone who they were or what they did. I never tell them. I ask them what their memory is telling us, and they tell me all the time. So the fascinating part to me was just how people, again, the patterns. You would see the past lives that they go to, they were going through similar issues in this lifetime. I had the promises we make to ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I had a case where a young man, he went back to a lifetime where he was a farmer with his mother. They were struggling on their farm, and his father had left them. And so he promised his mother he would never leave her. Now, we were in the counseling session because his wife and his mother were totally at odds. Oil and vinegar. They didn't get along. And he couldn't figure out why. He loved both of them. He wanted to please both of them. He was really married to both of them. And so he realized in the session that he promised his mother in that lifetime he would always take care of her. So we renegotiated that promise. And he affirmed his love, but told her that he could no longer make that commitment on the level that he had held it because it was causing so much friction. And it wasn't natural, the way they were interacting with each other. But it helped him to sort out that very complex, as you can imagine, problem. Yeah, so that was, it's fascinating things like that happen.
Relationships. There's some people who are tuning in tonight because they're curious to have this conversation about relationships and repairing relationships and so on. Let's start with the not complex, but this unusual one first. The inner male and female.
Yeah.
And how does that affect the outer relationship?
Well, one of the things that I've learned first of all, in this work, I have tended to attract people who wanted healing with relationships. So I've been able to develop this, I guess it's a process where we heal the inner male and female, and it always, I can guarantee, will reflect and heal the outer male and female. And the inner male and female is not a person or even a sex or a gender, but a concept.
Mhm.
The inner female is intuition, and the inner male is right action.
Right action.
Right action. So I say to people, how do your inner male and female work together? Are you intuiting and taking action on what you're hearing? If you are, then they're balanced and they're working together.
Mhm.
And if you're not, then they're not working together. If you intuit, that's the starving artist who dreams all the time but never does anything about it, then your female is very active and your male is out of balance with her. If you jump ahead and do things before you really check in with your intuition, your male is really active and your female is not balanced. Okay? So that's the concept.
That balance is very important.
That balance is important. And guess what? The female leads.
But of course, the female brings us into this world.
That
right?
intuition. So the intuition is leading, the right action is following her lead.
Mhm.
And when you do that internally, you are guaranteed to have a balanced external relationship.
If the male
Mhm.
humbles, not subservient,
Mhm.
but surrenders and humbles to the
Mhm.
female.
Well, I like to use the word respect.
Okay.
When you respect that intuition that's coming through and trust it
Mm.
and take action on it, you cannot fail. You cannot fail.
Amazing. Amazing. Regenerating relationships agreement.
Mhm.
What do you mean by agreement in this context?
Well, it goes back to those promises that I talked about. A lot of times we make promises to ourselves, to others, and we decide later on, we outgrow things, we realize, okay, now I'm ready for something different, something new, but we feel like we can't move, we're stuck. So this process allows you to renegotiate the agreement that you had with yourself, with another person. I even renegotiated an agreement with a job, person's job.
Wow.
She worked for the Board of Ed. She felt that she had outgrown her job and she was in a turmoil. She didn't know she should retire. So we renegotiated the agreement. And this was all done on the fourth dimension.
So, what is the relationship between the agreement
Mhm.
and the male, the inner male, inner female
Mhm.
relationship?
Well,
How does one affect the other?
inner male and inner females, the agreement is to work together, actually. That's the agreement. And, you know, I got the concept from a book by Shaki Gawain, Creative Visualization, I'm sorry. And basically, she talked about old male, old female, new female. Old male is aggressive and controlling. Old female is a victim. Okay? So these are the old characteristics we see in the typical male-female. The new female is intuitive. The new male is right action. The new female is nurturing. The new male is not only right action, but assertive instead of aggressive. Okay? So I work with clients a lot with these. You know, I get a lot of women who are in powerful positions. They're accountants, lawyers, and what have you. And many of them feel they have to behave like old male, controlling, aggressive, you know. But I say to them, you'll get more done if you stand in your new male, which is assertive right action, and new female, which is intuitive nurturing. So for a lot of them, it's challenging to go there. But when you learn these concepts and you apply them, this is what happens on the outside. The female now nurtures her male to reach his highest potential.
Physically.
physically.
And it's almost like autonomic behavior. I mean, it happens
Exactly.
inside.
You got it. You got it. Right.
Wow.
Autonomic behavior. And she becomes a kingmaker. She becomes a kingmaker because her intention is to lift him up to his greatest self.
What do you say? And I'm going to be a little controversial. What do you say to a woman who? I'm not talking about womanness here. I'm talking about feminism.
Okay.
Who is steeped in feminism and is saying, "Well, why should I be a kingmaker? You know, why doesn't he be a queenmaker? Why should I uplift him? Why doesn't he?" And here's this conflict of
People who are kingmakers are automatically queens. Okay?
love.
Because they move right up there with the king.
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
It's like it's
How can
automatic.
you be a kingmaker and be far away? You're right. Absolutely.
It's automatic. So you move right up there with them. Now what I say to the feminist is what you're doing working for you? And if it is, then fine. But if it isn't, then take a look at this. Now that king-queen gender, it can be the other way around. I know a lot of women whose husbands have decided to lift them up career-wise,
Right.
and they nurture them. My sister and her husband are one. She is really climbing the ladder in her career. She's retired now. And he nurtures her. He nurtures the home. He nurtures the plants. He nurtures their dogs, their pets. You know. So it doesn't have to be the male or the female. Whoever has that strongest quality to nurture, to take right action and move with it, you know, that gender is the one that does it.
How is that identified?
I think it's innate.
Mhm.
I think when both people are trying to be the male energy, there's conflict, and that may be why a lot of our relationships suffer, because a lot of women feel to nurture is a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay.